Let's talk about having lots of kiddos and how you can give them enough attention each. I used to look at a big family with more than a few kids and think there is no way those kids are getting the proper attention they deserve. That has to be neglect. There's just no way because there's only two parents. You don't have enough hours in the day. I used to think the exact same way. Now, I remember when I had my first baby and I found out I was pregnant with baby number 2, and I was like, how could I love this baby as much as I love the baby I have now? Yes, a mother's love is endless. She has enough love to give to all her children. She has enough love to give, but she doesn't have enough time to give. What's up? My name is Chrissy Horton. I talk all things motherhood, postpartum, pregnancy, as a mom of 6. If you're into that honest, real motherhood talk from just one mom to another, make sure you like and subscribe, and let's get into it. So as someone who is on social media, it's no surprise that I receive criticism. And one of the pieces of criticism I get is there's just no way I can give all my kids the love and attention they deserve with how many I have of them. I usually don't address it, but I also had a very big misunderstanding of what big families really look like. And I was always skeptical of big families, and I used to be the one to think that way. I used to look at a big family with more than a few kids and think there is no way those kids are getting the proper attention they deserve. That has to be neglect. There's just no way because there's only two parents. You don't have enough hours in the day. I used to think the exact same way. But now that I'm living in it, I can understand how it is possible to give them the love and attention they each deserve. I will say right off the bat, I think having a big family with lots of kids, it is a difficult concept for people to wrap their heads around because what we're doing is we're comparing our life to theirs. And that's comparing apples to oranges. You know, I'll have parents who have 2 kids and they think, I don't know how you do it. With 6 kids, I can barely keep up with 2. But what they're doing is they're viewing what life would look like with 6 kids through the lens they have with 2. So let me give an example. These particular parents who have spoken to me will have 2 kids in travel sports, right? They're always on the go and both parents work full time and the children go to traditional school. Yeah, I think that would be very difficult to have 6 kids in all of those things, right? I think school is very much dependent on your child, and I think there's lots of different paths they can take. I'm just speaking of how we're able to incorporate more time with our kids, and homeschool has been one of those ways for us. So homeschooling, right away, we get so much of that time back because our kids are home. And when I homeschool, it's a lot of one-on-one time with each kid. So we also don't have that morning dash out the door for school. Now, I have to say, I'm speaking specifically about my family. I cannot speak for any other family. I am just sharing a glimpse into how we are able to give our children the love and attention they deserve. We don't even have a mad rush to get to work out the door because one, my job is this. I get dedicated days to film. I, post on the go. It's very flexible. Same with my husband. My husband worked many years at a traditional office. He worked many years on building his business. And now he's at a point where he's home and his hours are a lot more flexible. So that in itself gives us that time back too. Our children are in activities. Our older 3 are all in activities. They're in football, they're in baseball, they're in gymnastics. So our children play at the rec club level. We're not doing travel sports. Now, if one of our children show tremendous potential in a certain activity where we really need to harness that and let them grow and challenge them more, then we'll cross that bridge when it comes. But as of right now, they're good. They're great at what they do, but not in anything where I'm like, major leagues for that one. So they're also only, 9. My oldest is 9. So we can pump the brakes a little bit. You have these families looking through the lens of their busy schedule of what life would be like with 6 kids when that's actually not the case at all. My kids see their friends and have activities every single day, but it's not this rigid, like, we got to drive 30 minutes this way and we got to get here on this time and we got to be there at 7 a.m. It's very like once, twice a week, they have practice for an hour, maybe 2 hours. Yes, we have 6 kids, but we don't have 6 kids in a bunch of activities. I mean, 4 of my kids are 5 and under. My 5-year-old does do gymnastics, but the other 3, they're really, really young. So they get all their playtime, play days with their brother and sister, with family, that we don't have them in any sort of rec sports at this young of an age. So it's not 6 kids and a ton of activities. But I will say those activities provide a lot of the one-on-one time. So, what happens is, either Tim or I will take them to practice. So if I'm taking them to practice, we get that one-on-one time in the car. We get that one-on-one time like during breaks in practice. We get that one-on-one time on the ride back. Sometimes we'll take them out for a little treat, so we get that time with them because of those extracurriculars. And then the other parent is with less kids at that point too, right? So then they're getting that time with those little ones. A lot of these one-on-one attention times happen organically throughout the day. When the baby is napping, when the baby and toddler nap around the same time, I'm able to give the older kids a lot more attention. And at that point, we'll play something where the little kids, it might be harder for them to do because they're napping. So we'll play a board game or something. I mean, there's just tons of these organic moments throughout the day that pop up, especially because we homeschool and we're together so much. There was one day where I think I had the toddler and the baby napping, and then two of my younger ones were playing like at the water table independently, really fun on their own. And so my older boy was like, hey, can you throw the ball with me? And everyone was kind of doing their own thing, or they were sleeping. And so him and I just threw the ball together. And these moments happen so much throughout the day. And then another big time we get a lot of where they get like this one-on-one attention is at nighttime when we do our tuck-ins. I've been very transparent about our nighttime routine and how late these kids go to bed because we are pretty adamant about them getting that one-on-one time at the end of the day when they open up and they're sleepy and they just are kind of melting in our arms, and it's just so sacred and it's so wonderful, and it's so short that this time happens. So we're really embrace it. But my mom tucked my sister and I in up until the day we moved out. She would spend time with us every single night. Even if we were teenagers and we weren't necessarily going to bed at that time, she would kind of like come in, tuck us in, and have a moment with us. And so I like to continue this tradition as my kids get older too, and where they know like, hey, at the end of the day, like mom and dad's gonna come into my room and we're gonna get to chat. But we're also available throughout the day too. Now I remember when I had my first baby and I found out I was pregnant with baby number 2, and I was like, how could I love this baby as much as I love the baby I have now? Like, I can't imagine loving another child. I really couldn't. Like, I was the first time mom, I had my first baby, and I was like, I just love this baby with everything I have. How can I love another baby? And then that baby comes, and you learn real quick that a mother's love is truly endless. It's endless. It doesn't divide, it multiplies. And boy, is that true. Now, when I say this, people are like, that's great, that's beautiful, that's wonderful. Yes, a mother's love is endless. She has enough love to give to all her children. She has enough love to give, but she doesn't have enough time to give. And that just kind of circles back to what we're saying, like, what does your day look like? And what responsibilities do you have? And another thing to remember is I do not have 6 kids under 4. I have 4 kids. No, I have 3 kids under 4. But I do not have 6 kids who are very little. My older ones, they're 9 and 8. They don't want me around them 24/7. When 2:00 hits and we're done with school, they're like, can we go on a bike ride and see all our friends? Because we live in a neighborhood. There's lots of other kids, and they're out. They're out with their friends, and they're at that age where they want to see their friends. And I definitely, especially as a homeschool mom, I definitely make sure they have time with their friends. They're with friends every single day. They have extracurriculars. They're out in the neighborhood. We coordinate play dates, and they're there. They're ready for that. And so, they'll be out on that bike ride. And then, maybe at 2:00, my toddler's taking a nap. And you can tell I get a lot done during napping, right? Toddler's taking a nap. And then my 5-year-old's like, hey, mommy, can you color with me? And my preschooler's like, oh yeah, I like to color too. And so it's like the 3 of us. So as they get older, they have different demands of attention. And, my 3-year-old loves puzzles. He loves Legos, and he will play that for just like an hour on end independently. And I'll sit with him like, do you want help with this? He's like, oh, I got it, mommy. And so that gives me time with the other kids. And another thing is the baby, right? I'm wearing the baby all the time. Baby's always on my hip. Baby's always in a carrier. Baby's always in my arms. So there's always that right there. And then again, I think a big thing people focus on is this whole individual time. But I forgot where I read this, but it was something where it was like, your most memorable moments aren't necessarily one-on-one times. It's kind of like the more the merrier, and you remember these moments and you cherish them more when they involve people, not just one other person. And I'm not quoting it right. I'm not being the most articulate about it, but it's very true. So while we definitely do make time to make sure our kids feel like they have enough attention, they're creating these beautiful memories as all of us together as a family. And I think that's what it comes down to, is when we spend family time together, it's very intentional. We really do try to make sure our phones are put away. We'll play games together. We'll all play like a game of softball. We have the 2-year-old with his little catcher mitt, and he's playing catcher. I mean, we find ways where we're all playing together. And I feel like those have harnessed some of our most memorable memories, really. What I'm about to say may not sound like the nicest, but it was something I heard back before I had a lot of kids, and it struck a chord with me. But in a way that made me kind of realize, and it kind of went like this: don't allow what you are capable of be the lens of what I am capable of. And I know we don't like to hear that. I know we don't like to be like, oh, well, you think you can be better than me? You think you know more than me?
Oh my God, you want to talk about mothers?
No, but I do think we have different capabilities. And, for example, I'll look at the gymnast, right? There's no way my body can move like that, right? There's no way my body can move like that. Maybe one day it could if I trained really hard, sure. But I look at that and I go, how are some of these flips possible? How can you stay in the air that long? That just goes against physics. But just because I can't imagine it doesn't mean it's not possible, right? I'm seeing it happen. So sometimes we project our own insecurities onto others and we compare our schedules to others, not realizing that there might be different life choices these people make in order to accommodate their children and make sure they're being nurtured in the most proper way. Now, I'm on social media, guys. I see the people who have negative comments who say, hey, I come from a big family. I came from 10 brothers and sisters. I absolutely hated it. I was parent-fied, or I forgot the term, but where they had to parent their younger siblings. And my heart goes out to them. That's not fair. I don't think a childhood should be robbed of them where they have to parent their younger siblings. And I don't think that's fair at all. And I think every family is different. And I have seen families with 2 kids where the older sibling is still parenting the younger sibling and taking care of their younger sibling. So I think you can find this if you look for it. And every family is so different. So I am not trying to say that their feelings aren't valid. They're very valid. That's the experience they have lived, but they don't speak for every big family. I don't like to admit it, but I have been on Reddit. I have seen what people have said about me, and people who don't even know me, who don't even look at my page, will say the only way she can have that many kids is through neglect. She's neglecting them. And I just kind of explained how our day goes. I did have a video on what my day-to-day looks like, how I'm able to balance all these things, the team I have, the village I have. So if you are interested in the amount of help I have that up there too. But it's not neglect. Man, if I neglected my kids, I feel like my day wouldn't be so jam-packed. It's very interesting to me that that's the first place people go, well, she must neglect them. I don't know how. Like, my kids are so, they're like, Mom, I need this, Mom, I need this, Mom, I need Like, I don't think I could even if I wanted to. I also think it's really important to remember that in this day and age, anyone can make a video and anyone could go viral. And just because someone goes viral or makes a video about a certain topic doesn't mean they are the expert on it. I also, and this is another hard truth, but people who tend to share their negative experiences online tend to be louder than those who have positive experiences. Because usually the people who are positive and happy with their life don't feel the need to come online and scrutinize the things they don't like about it. I also think this misunderstanding of how much attention a child can get in a big family stems from a lot of the reality shows, unfortunately. I grew up in a day where reality shows exploded, and some of these big families became like the poster child for big families, and they're not. I know a ton of big families through my lifestyle now. I've met other big families, and they're nowhere near what I grew up believing what big families were. We want to raise our children to be contributing members to society, to be gracious, to be helpful, to serve their community, and that really does start in the home. So sometimes I'll have a video where maybe like my kids carrying the baby, and people automatically say, oh, that's their parent bite, or whatever the term is. They genuinely love carrying the baby. Like, they love their little siblings. They love helping. They love being big helpers, And yeah, I'm going to admit, sometimes I'll be like, hey, I have to go to the bathroom. And to my oldest son, I'll be like, can you watch the baby for a second while I use the restroom? I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And my gosh, like, can mom get a break? Like, it's fine. She can use the restroom, and he's more than happy to. He's not saying like, oh, I'm not getting a child because I don't watch the baby for 5 minutes while I use the restroom. Like, it's also teaching them that we live in a house together and we're all supposed to be contributing to that household. Like, my husband is so hands-on, and if I have to leave for a work trip, I don't need to leave him a note. I don't need to leave him anything. He knows how the house operates, because if he was living on his own, he would have to operate his house. If I was living on my own, I'd have to operate my house. So it's like, when we all live together, we need to work together. And my children are learning this at a very young age. And I'm not saying you have to have a big family to learn this, not by any means. But what I'm trying to say is that just because an older child is caring for their younger child doesn't mean parenting them. I don't even think my older child's ever changed a diaper. I don't even know if that's a good thing. I think it might be a good thing if they knew how to do it. But yeah, I'm very sensitive to that. And so I might do too much to make sure they're not parent-finding that. I might be robbing them of some of these really great experiences. I mean, at an early age, they get to experience a baby and the love that comes from that. And it's really incredible. The way my children work together and love each other, we are our village. This is our village. Like, And it is here they're going to learn how to go out into the world and how to treat other people. It all starts in the home. So yeah, I think it's great that we have a system set up to where they learn about this, how we learn how we lean on one another. I like to think my kids are going to make great roommates if they, when they go off to college or something, because they know how to work in a house, because they know how to work together. And again, you don't need a lot of kids to do this by any means, but there's a lot of valuable lessons that they are learning. I do think it's super important to those families who do have lots of kids that, yeah, the older ones aren't being robbed of their childhood. I completely agree about that. These children are all entitled to a childhood. And I truly believe my husband and I are giving them that. We are not relying on them to care for our younger kids. They're not up with them in the middle of the night. They're not doing diaper changes. They don't have to worry about if they're getting enough to eat or anything like that. No. But yeah, if I have to run to the bathroom, they'll watch the baby. There's been times where I have wanted to, do one-on-one homeschooling, and the older ones will say like, oh, come on, to the toddler, and they'll play with him. And to me, that's not parent buying. That's one, they just enjoy each other. I think some people have a hard time believing this, but some siblings like really do like each other. And so they really do enjoy them. And, maybe I'm just in the golden age of parenting right now where my oldest is only 9 and, they're independent, but they still want mom and dad. And, maybe this will all change when they're teenagers. I guess I can't sit here confidently and say that I know, because I don't know the future, but the rate at which things are going, I do not feel like there is a child not getting enough attention. And I think at the end of the day, each family is so different and we all have our own dynamics, just as we as individuals are so different, that I think it's very unfair that big families get painted with one broad brush. I mean, what if we did that to families who had one kid, right? And we said all these things like, oh, well, if you only have one child, studies show this or this, and that'd be awful, right? Because we don't know everyone's journeys. And it would be so unfair and so unkind. And I think we need to show that same respect to people with big families, because sure, we've heard some horror stories, but I've heard some horror stories that come from people who had 2 kids. I've heard horror stories that come from people who have 1 kid. It doesn't represent each family, because we're all so different and we all have different dynamics in our households and different priorities and different responsibilities and different forms of support. I actually made a short recently. I was in my car because someone's like, how do you spend one-on-one time with your 6 kids? And I actually addressed this in a very organic, short way while I was eating dinner in my car, taking my kid to breakfast. But someone left this comment and I thought it was very insightful. It said, totally agree. One-on-ones are a modern day individualistic thing that stems from a consumer limited resource mindset. I've seen more data that supports your point about bonding as a group in organic moments throughout the week. The magic doesn't lie in the method. And I just can't stress this enough. It was a concept I couldn't grasp my head around until I lived it. And sometimes it just comes to the lived experience and you won't understand it. And you can try to understand it, but maybe you won't, because you only know life through the way you've experienced it. To sum it up, every family is different and every family has a different set of priorities and how it works, and their schedules are different, and we truly do not know. And I would just ask that we don't judge so quickly and so harshly. Let me know if you're enjoying this kind of content where we're getting real honest in these honest hours. I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying talking about these topics with you. Drop it in the comments if there's other topics you want me to share, or anything from my life that you think would be worth telling. I'm happy to talk about it. And until then, I'll see you later.